You're watching the Chiefs Report. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. We got another mailbag to get to, so you see what the note below says. Use hashtag Chiefs or Super Chat. We'll answer all of your questions on today's show. ONG Prods, hashtag Chiefs. Should we draft a wide receiver or a defensive player? Well, let's just assume it's round one. The Chiefs are still in a place where they can go BPA. What's BPA? Best player available. I really think wide receiver is going to be a strong one, though. It's a good class, again, a lot of good players, and I think the Mecole Hardman wide receiver 2 experiment has not paid off, and Josh Gordon, he's not that guy anymore. So I think getting a legit wide receiver 2, I'd like to keep Pringle long-term as the wide receiver 3. We'll see what they do with Hardman if he gets a second contract after next year, but if there's a good receiver you like in the first round, I'd be pretty tempted to take that player. Speaking of Mecole Hardman from Leonardo, is it too soon to move on from Hardman or to move from Hardman? He's got 1 year left. You could trade him. What would you take for Hardman? 4th round pick? You're not going to get a day 2 pick. Someone will like that speed, but you're not going to get a ton for him. I think you let next year play out. And if he wants to come back on a cheapish deal to be that gadget, return man, jet sweep type of player for $3-4 million a year, I'm down to keep him, but he's not a wide receiver 2. I think that has proven itself out over time. Carlos the Baby, I know we drafted CEH in the first round, but should we look for more running back help this offseason? I don't know if he's a premier back. So first game back looked pretty good. I would tend to agree. I don't think he's a premier back. I do think he is an RB1 in the NFL. I think I talk about this with guys in the office all the time. Unless someone is just undeniably special, you shouldn't draft a running back in the first round. This probably wasn't a great pick. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be productive. That doesn't mean he hasn't been productive. I thought he played well against Dallas. The average is over 5 yards a carry. That's very nice. I think if you're going to add running backs, I think the rule of thumb for running backs, you should draft one in like the 3rd or 4th round like every 3 years. And then you always have a decent back, whether he's your starter or backup. You run him into the ground, and then you draft another one. I mean, that's easily what you can do. So I think that's definitely a possibility. Now, the question is, can Edwards-Helaire become like that next level player? I would say he's like a top 20 NFL running back. Can he be a top 10 guy? Can he be, I don't know, like a Joe Mixon type where he's, he catches a bunch, runs a bunch, and is a 1,300 all-purpose yards guy? I don't know. Type 1 for yes, type 0 for no. This will be the pinned comment on today's video, so give us your thoughts during this YouTube ad break. Heifer Raycon, let's see. Should the Chiefs release Clark at the end of the season or re-sign him to a team-friendly deal? Well, he's under contract, so I think you mean like restructure his contract is really what you'd be talking about. If you release him, you would still have some dead cap money. You could save some money against the dead cap. I do think Frank Clark is a restructured contract candidate for sure. I think both sides, especially if he continues to play well, would like to keep him. But I think it's one of these, right? Hey, Frank, we like you. You played well down the stretch. You're not worth $25 million a year. So what do you want? Do you want us to cut you, or do you want to rework your deal? And then we'll see what he says. But we appreciate the super chat, and we'll see how that plays out. Another super chat. All super chats get on the show. Appreciate that. MDB deployed, but finally get to catch up with you guys alive. Thank you for your service. MDB, you guys are the best. Has Melvin Ingram been the secret weapon all along? He's been outstanding. I wouldn't go secret weapon, but look, he's been a nice additional pass rusher. You can never have enough pass rushers. You just can't. Like, the way to be good on defense today, some analytics will tell you better coverage on the back end is more important. I still believe getting after the quarterback's the most impactful way, because if you can fluster a quarterback, that nothing else matters. Like, if a quarterback's rocked, he's like, oh, I don't know if I trust my protection. We saw Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year. Like, dudes were getting open. He didn't trust his offensive line. So if you can rattle a quarterback, I think that's the most important thing, and Ingram has been a nice piece to help do that. Now, the holidays are almost here, and if you're like me, you wait until the last minute to do Christmas shopping. But don't be that guy, because we have a great deal for you guys. These Nike Authentic jerseys from our partner Fanatics are on sale for $89.99. And you guys for over a year have been asking me about the yellow jerseys that aren't actually game jerseys, but some websites sell them. They're back, baby. You can get the Mahomes one, the Tyreek Hill in yellow. You can also get the Mahomes red. We have Travis Kelce in red right now. We unfortunately don't have yellow at the moment, but a couple of them are out there, so hey, this is your time to get one for a good price. Nike Authentic jerseys usually worth over $100 right now. They are $89.99. So pick one up today. Chatsports.com/Chiefs jersey. It's the perfect gift for yourself or your loved ones during the holiday season. From Jeremy Huggs, no relation. How many Super Bowls will Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes win together? Who knows, right? Like, gosh, I don't want to be like, I said about a year and a half ago, or before they won the first one, that the over-under was 3, and my colleagues said I was insane, and then they won that one that year, then they win again the next year. They obviously didn't win last year, but I still think that's kind of a fair number, 3. Can they win 2 more together? How long is Andy Reid going to coach? I know he signed an extension, but he is in his early mid-60s now. It's not like he's a spring chicken by any means. It seems like he still has a lot left in the tank. I'll still put that number in the 3 range. Let's see what happens this year. I think the Super Bowl is wide open this year. I think one of about 8 or 10 teams could end up winning it. And hey, the Chiefs are one of the more experienced teams out of that group. Hit that subscribe button if you want free Chiefs videos all season long. We're pumping out content just about every single day, so don't miss out, and we'll continue to break down the latest around this team. If news emerges, we'll talk about it. If there's wild rumors out there, we're breaking those down as well. So go ahead and subscribe and join us on Monday so you can be a part of these live Q&As. Max Carnage reviews, is edge rusher a top draft choice? That it could be, right? I mean, is Melvin Ingram back next year? I mean, he's on that 1-year deal that he signed with Pittsburgh, and now he's with Kansas City. Do you cut Frank Clark? Do you try to trade him? That's also possible. So, yeah, I think edge could be a position. I don't think Michael Dana is a starter. I think he's been a nice rotation piece. I don't think Kando's a starter long-term. So I think drafting an edge could be a possibility. I think edge and receiver, as I put together my biggest draft needs, might end up being my top 2. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, as we get closer to the offseason, we'll talk more draft stuff. So stay tuned and subscribe. Cole Keller, with Frank Clark's improvements, do you see him on the roster in 22? We talked about this earlier in the mailbag. I think a lot of it depends on if he's willing to take a restructured deal, a little bit of a pay cut. He makes a lot of money for a guy who's not insanely productive. Now, he's played a lot better, and if he continues this level the rest of the season, that could change my thinking a little bit. But I think at least some sort of a restructuring is in order. LaCry Bames, what do you think about Charvarius Ward's criminally underrated season? Has a 70-ish passer rating allowed. Look, he started the first 5 or 6 games. He was bad. And last year he was bad, so you're like, yeah, the Chiefs were hoping this was just a bad year last year for Ward, but he's just not that good. As this defense has improved, so has Charvarius Ward. Had a nice pick of Dak Prescott in the end zone yesterday. He had 3 pass breakups. Look, Ward has played pretty well this year, and Fenton's played well, and Snead's playing better. I mean, all of a sudden, cornerback is in a pretty good spot on this roster. So kudos to him. He was really good in 2019, didn't play well in 20 in the first part of this year, but he's figured it out. He's got his confidence back, and confidence is a huge deal for cornerbacks. The Life Expert. Do you think Cornell Powell will develop into a starter? Can he develop into a guy that's on the active roster? I mean, a guy that got drafted in the 5th round didn't make the final 53. That kind of speaks volumes to me. I'm hopeful he can be a contributor down the road, but I mean, they chose to sign a guy like Josh Gordon rather than elevate Cornell Powell, so I think that kind of tells you where he's at in his development right now. Rashard Lee, should the Chiefs sign Michael Gallup in the offseason? He'd be a good wide receiver too. I think he's the definition of a wide receiver too. I think we saw in that Chiefs-Cowboys game, Cooper out, Lamb gets hurt. If he's your wide receiver 1, he's not good enough. He's not a wide receiver 1. But when you have Tyreek Hill on the other side and Travis Kelce work in the middle, Michael Gallup getting CB2 looks in man coverage, yeah, let's ride. I think that's a guy for the right price that could fit in really well in Kansas City. Jensen's weather forecast. Any chance we could get the number 1 seed? Schedule doesn't seem too difficult after the bye week. Titans seem to be struggling without Julio and Henry. I think there's some truth to that, especially with Henry. We'll look at the playoff picture here. Then I'm also pulling up the schedule because we talked about this a week or two ago, how the schedule is pretty manageable. So Chiefs a game back of the number 1 seed, but Baltimore and Tennessee beat Kansas City head-to-head. So you would have to pass them by a game in the standings. You look at the schedule here, too. Bye week this week, Denver at home, Raiders at home, at the Chargers Thursday night on December 16th. That is the game right there. Steelers at home after that, at Cincinnati, could be a tough game, and then at Denver to finish up. Outside of the Chargers and Bengals on the road, the Chiefs will be pretty heavy favorites for the rest of their games. And they'll probably be favored in those two as well, but they are road games. I think at worst, this team probably goes 5-2 the rest of the way. I think 6-1, maybe even 7-0 is a possibility. Now, I think we need to see it play out a few more weeks, but if this defense continues to play like this, you win out, go 13-4, I think that gets you the number 1 seed. I don't think the AFC has a true dominant team at this point in the season. Stephen Newcomb, Nick Bolton, Willie Gay Jr. are absolute beasts. Why are they still starting Hitchens? That's the one thing I don't love that Spags is doing. Bolton got more in there against Dallas, which was smart because he's their best run-defending linebacker, and you knew, especially without Amari Cooper, that they were going to try and get Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard going, and Chiefs shut down the run. 82 rushing yards for the Cowboys. I'm with you. I think you've got your two-headed monster for the foreseeable future. They're starting Hitchens because they value his communication and his leadership, but I don't know if that's enough to not start Nick Bolton. I mean, he's been absolutely tremendous. Shout out your favorite Chiefs player in the live chat, in the comments. It can be Patrick Mahomes if you want, but get creative. Shout out someone else. Current players only. We're not talking about all-time greats. Favorite current Chiefs player. Shout out a couple names if you want to, and let us know. Leonardo Garibaldi, will Eric Bieniemy be back next year, or will he get a head coaching job? You know, a month ago you're like, Bieniemy may not be in the mix this year. Well, all of a sudden, team starts winning more. I think he'll be kind of where he's been, right? He'll get interviews. Is this the year he breaks through? Also, and, you know, I don't want to spend too much time on it, how many jobs will be open this year? I mean, probably the typical 4 to 6, 5 to 7, somewhere in that range. I don't know. I think he'll get some interviews, but I'd say it's like 50-50 again, because if recent cycles show, it's not a guarantee that he'll get a job.